Live, and we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Andrew Hall, and with me today is filmmaker, and I might even say the word wizard, Badon. Before we get into his new movie, Sister Tempest, I'm going to play the trailer to get everyone's feet wet about the source material. So here is an official trailer for his new movie, Sister Tempest.
I'm going to show you something new tonight. Something ethereal, something trippy, something you haven't ever seen before. May I present to you...
Her Majesty.
Behold, young ones, young fatlings, fallings, farthings. I'm here to bring you a story. The story of a young child like yourselves. A girl, a woman named Anne Hutchinson. In the next span of minutes and hours, we shall split open her mind and dissect her thoughts. Behold, the story of the one.
Hold my hand.
The hell was that? Nothing to worry about, ladies. It's just a ground tremor.
That's no tremor. Something terrible is coming.
An UFO? An angel?
It's none of those things. It's all of those things. It's beautiful.
Are you comfortable? Did you enjoy the performance? Do you need anything?
Wow. Well, the trailer speaks for itself. I don't even think we need to talk anymore about the movie, to tell you the truth. It's all laid out.
We're
there.
done.
Very straightforward.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those trailers where we spoil everything.
Exactly. All the hype. Okay, so I thought the next logical step would be for me to read through the Imbd log line, the pitch, so to speak, the one sentence synopsis for the movie, as well as your own log line that you had on your Kickstarter campaign, which of course is much more accurate. But we'll start off with the Imbd.
Sure.
The pitch is Anne Hutchinson's troubled relationship with her missing sister is under alien tribunal. Meanwhile, her new roommate's mysterious illness causes her to go on a cannibalistic killing spree.
Yeah, that took me quite a while. I have a little private group with all of the cast and crew members, and I had given them some ideas of what I wanted. We all kind of hashed it out, so we figured out what that log line should be, because it's really hard to put this movie in a nutshell.
Yes, well, like I said, I was looking on your Kickstarter page, and you call it a full-length thriller, art house, body horror, sci-fi, surreal dark comedy, and in quotes, it's like Mulholland Drive meets Holy Mountain meets Zardoz. I'm sorry. So, I'm just going to start off with my reactions to the movie. I saw it last night with my girlfriend, and I really liked it. I thought that the writing was super impressive.
Oh, thank you.
You were able to do this kind of magic trick in terms of sequencing the scenes, in terms of theme, which I thought really was spot on.
Thank you.
And I'll even be as bold, Joe, to say that I believe I understood the movie, at least a majority of it.
Nice.
And I think this might be, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and maybe tease what we're going to be talking about later on. But maybe if you want to ask me questions about the movie,
that'd be awesome.
That might be an interesting kind of digression. But yeah, so excellent writing, wonderful mashup of genres, and there is a logical progression. Internal. The movie has an internal logic to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And there is a progression from the beginning to the end.
Right.
Yeah. So once again, fantastic.
Thank you.
And recommend it to anyone who's watching and anyone who watches later on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say my biggest fear, like the entire time, was that it was just gonna be too confusing for people to understand. And then after like the cast and crew watched it, kind of asking like just producers and stuff, everybody seemed to get the general idea. So it's like, okay, good. I'm always worried that I'm just gonna make a pile of nonsense.
Right. What I want to say too is that you were on my old show, the Naked Diner podcast, to talk about your movie, The God Inside My Ear. And I want to say that Sister Tempest seems to be a logical progression from that movie.
Yeah, totally. This is like the movie that I really wanted to make. With God Inside My Ear, I was thinking, I have no money at all. Let me just see what I can use, like, without spending much money, so it was done very bare bones. And Sister Tempest I wrote the script with like $1 million budget in mind, which of course we didn't. We've made the movie for 30 grand, but I made the movie with like a big budget because I was thinking, okay, I have God Inside My Ear, I can use this as a resume piece and try to get funding, which I tried to, and it was like, nobody wanted it to touch another surrealist movie with no-name actors that like had no real viable commercial viability, so we had to go to Kickstarter instead.
Well, I just see so many people. I had a couple of guys on from New Zealand who did the movie Older, that's streaming now on Amazon Prime, and they did a similar route. They got they had to do a film, they had to do a Kickstarter campaign themselves, and they called in a lot of favors from people that they knew, actors, editors, cameramen, and that's just how it's done.
It's true. It's true. If you have the passion to tell a story, you're just going to figure out how to tell it and do it,
Exactly. From the chat, my buddy Tons of Mice asked me, where did you watch it? Joe, I was lucky enough that Joe sent me a screener, which he, I imagine you send out to movie reviewers and people that can do interviews for. And I'm sure we'll touch on this a couple of different times in our hour together. And where will people be able to see it when it's out for general?
Well, we are touring film festivals right now, and pretty much all the film festivals, or the majority of them, are online this year because of COVID. So like tonight, it's actually going to be playing at the Sin City Horror Film Fest. And that's actually going to be streaming on YouTube live tonight. So just for one night with Sin City. But if you go to sistertempest.blogspot.com, yes, I still make my websites in Blogspot. We have the tour dates, at least most of the tour dates that are coming up. But yeah, right now we're just touring film festivals and we're shopping around distributors. So
cool. When I did the 48-hour film project a couple of times, and I made my own, short, really short comedy bits. And what I always did too was that I would always show it to people before it went out, just to say, so does this make sense? Can you tell me what the movie's about? Right.
Exactly. That's important. And also, I want everybody, for Sister Tempest, I wanted to make it ambiguous enough to where everybody kind of gets their own personal meaning from it, but still have a concrete narrative. And I feel like I did that for the most part. I just wanted everybody to feel like they could take personal ownership of the film. and get something out of it themselves, you know. It's very frustrating when you watch a movie and it just feels like they're spoon feeding you the message completely, and they're spoon feeding you even the narrative completely. And so I try not to do that, but I still like a concrete narrative throughout. And so I hope I did that. So.
Yeah. Because you were able to do that in your first movie, God Inside My Ear.
Right.
And so that definitely helped prepare me for this movie.
Yeah. Cool.
So
Good.
why this story, Joe?
Well, with God Inside My Ear and Sister Tempest, a lot of this is just me working out my own spiritual questions, my own questions about the meaning of life, and also who God is and what God is, and if God is, and all of those things. And I was a youth pastor and an associate pastor at a Catholic not a charismatic holy roller kind of church for about 12 years. And of course, I grew up Catholic, being down south in New Orleans. And so it's all just like in my DNA. And so, you know, I got out of this church that I was serving at and basically had to kind of de-brainwash myself and get out of the cult that I was in. You know, realizing I was in a cult was a huge thing in the first place. And then after getting out of all that, this has been kind of therapy for me, you know, creating, working out my spiritual wrestling through creativity, you know. So that's the big part of it, you know.
Are you in a different place now in terms of your spirituality?
Right.
After you've done those two projects?
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable talking about that?
Yeah. I feel like more lost, but also more I'm trying to think of the right words to say.
Sure.
After doing Sister Tempest, I remember sitting down and watching the rough cut of the film after we had edited it, and I cried like a baby throughout the entire film. And at the end, I was just weeping because I finally felt like I had created something that was really from my soul, like something that I was just all my inner turmoil that I have inside of me. And you know, growing up, especially like in my 20s and my 30s, we're idealists, you know, when we're at that age, and we feel like we know everything. We feel like we should have the answers for everything. And I feel like going through this process of me like dealing with my questions about really what is life through these creative projects, I'm finally to the place where I can say I don't know.
Yeah.
You know. And so that's like the big evolution for me. That's the big maturity that I feel like I've gotten out of it. That I'm finally at a place where I have no fucking clue about anything, you know.
Are you more comfortable with that position now?
Yeah, more comfortable, and also there's like a slight sadness when you finally realize that, God, there's no real like ultimate truth in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's like a wonderful like realization that the most important thing in life is to love each other, you know, and to be good to one another. And then they go, well, that's like the whole thing I've always been searching for. That's the ultimate truth I've always been searching for. There's a movie called Altered States by Ken Russell. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I have.
That movie touches me in a way that I don't think any other movie has ever touched me. And there's this idea that this scientist is searching for truth, much like a religious man would search or woman would search for truth. And in the end, he comes down to just this black hole, this black void. And that is like his ending of the search for truth is a void. And when he comes out of it, he realizes that he should be loving his wife and kids, essentially. And that's like beautiful. And that's where I kind of am right now,
Tons of Mice just put in the link for the YouTube channel that's going to be showing your movie tonight at 7 p.m.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So, hey, thanks a lot. Tons of Mice. Yeah, I appreciate it. And Blazing Wizard Pope says, dang, I just got delayed sanitizing my groceries. That's okay, Blazing.
Totally.
So I have to ask you, I have to ask you, how long did it take you to write the script and how many rewrites did it take?
It took probably like a couple months to write the first draft, and then probably another month and a half or so to do, a couple more drafts. I think we ended up doing 3 drafts total. The first draft was going to be like a 3-hour movie. And of course we had to just chop and chop and chop and chop. Like in the movie, there's a race called the Zeolans, and they're like a camera crew. And the original draft had much more to do with the Zeolans. Like the director was like really directing her life, and they kept conferring with the writer of the film, and so there was like this whole like backstage of the film that wrapped around the movie that just became too much. So I had to chop it out. Sure. Unfortunately. So
it was good that you realized that you had to chop it out before you started filming.
Oh yeah. Well, it still was about 135-page script, so it was still well over 2 hours, and so there was still a lot of chopping we did even after we filmed.
Right.
So,
and just for people who are watching, 1 page of script, I believe, is 1 film time, or at least that's how it would be.
Yeah, that's right. It ended up, if we would have kept everything in the film, we could have stretched it to about 2.5 hours. I write a lot of dialogue, and literally we chopped about half of the dialogue out of the film during the editing process of after shooting. So,
I thought you were prudent in the language, but rich in the imagery.
Thank you. Well, if we would have kept all of the footage of the talking, you probably would have thought otherwise. We really chopped everybody's conversations down as much as we could.
Fantastic. So who did you have as an editor?
Oh, my friend Joseph Estrade. He edited The God Inside My Ear as well. And it was funny, before that, he mainly had done like music videos and weddings and things. And he had worked on set with me with God Inside My Ear. And afterwards, with God Inside My Ear, I had no money. I was shooting, doing all this by the seat of my pants completely. So I didn't have an editor. And he was like, right after shooting, he was like, I'm an editor. Let me edit this film. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And fortunately, he was really good. And he was even better with Sister Tempest. I mean, the editing in this film is incredible.
Yes, I was reading a few of the online reviews that you can find on Imbd, and a few people mentioned the editing job. Were there conversations? I'm going to use a euphemism. Were there conversations between you and the editor about how much was being taken out?
Oh, all the time. Every scene, he would be like, what should we do? This is, going to drag if we keep all the dialogue in. And so every time I would basically go through the dialogue and say, these are the lines that I definitely want in because it'll keep the story, going. But then all the rest, if you need to dump, let's dump. And I gave him the movie Magnolia, old Paul Thomas Anderson film, as kind of a basis to the pacing. And with that film, it's like a 2 hour and 45-minute film, but the pacing is just lightning fast the entire time. It's almost exhausting. And I said I wanted a similar pacing in the way that I didn't want to feel like it ever dragged. So
no, it did not drag, sir. It did not drag at all.
So we had to make sure we just kept going with it as fast as we could. So yeah, no, every scene I would like do Zoom meetings with him, and we would really work on the scenes together. So
cool. So we can't talk about independent filmmaking without talking about money, of course, and we touched on that a bit. But you raised, how much money did you raise? $24,000, $23,000?
$25,000 through Kickstarter, and then another $2,500 through Indiegogo. So almost $30,000 altogether.
And I mean, that sounds like success to me. Did you think that successful at the time? Did you reach your goal?
Yeah, I knew we could. That was the goal, was to do it for that much, and I knew I could do it. But it wasn't like optimal. You know, shooting a film for 2.5 hours worth of footage for $30,000 is a huge undertaking. You know, fortunately, everybody was excited. Like most people work for free, or very little. I mean, if we would have paid everybody, we would have shot. It would have been over 100,000.
Oh,
you know. But like I did a lot of the set dressing, and I was like, me and my wife were doing wardrobe, and like I was doing props, and I was doing as much as I could do myself.
Sure.
And then my daughter, Emma, she does a lot of special effects makeup. So she was doing a lot of like the boils and stuff. And so any ways that I could do
the boil,
do things for free or cheap, I was doing. Fortunately, we got pretty much every location for free, except for the church at the end of the film. And that was, my editor really pushed for it, because we were gonna shoot just in an all black room for that scene, and he was like, man, this scene needs a church. We need to do this in a church. And he did a lot of weddings, so he had a lot of connections there. So we were able to find one with a marble floor, because we had blood everywhere.
Oh,
we want to make sure we didn't get blood on carpet.
A wise choice. Yeah. No, I thought I if you were going to spend money on a set, then that church scene at the end, or towards the end, beautiful.
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful.
Really, thank you.
So, if you don't mind me asking, how much does a church go for to do what you did in there?
I think we spent. I think it was $2,500. Wow. So it was like 10. It was almost 10% of our whole budget was for that one scene. It was around that, I think. So it was quite a chunk, but it was worth it for 3 minutes of the movie.
So what made your Kickstarter, what made your money raising process successful? What do you think you did right? Or maybe what do you think you did wrong?
So with this one, I knew I'd never raised anywhere close. I had done other Kickstarters for comic books that I had illustrated, but I think the most I'd ever raised was maybe $3,000. And so 25,000 is a lot, and so I actually started messaging other film Kickstarters that had raised a bit of money. And one film, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but one producer from a film finally got back in touch with me. They had raised $60,000 for their film. And they said, the key is this: you can do all sorts of big tricks and stuff, but the number one key is that you personally message, text, or call every friend, family, and acquaintance you have. And so that's what I did. And that was the big secret, is literally just personally reaching out to every person, rat and cat, and that's what I did,
That's interesting, and that's from my previous conversations with other filmmakers. That seems to be a way of certifying that you're going to get something.
Right. Yeah. I had one producer already in for a big chunk of the money, and then I had some family members already in, friends already in for other chunks. So we ended up already having like 12,500. So we had half of it already committed before we had started the Kickstarter. So I just decided to double it and see what we could do, you know.
Right. Besides the church, what did you spend the most money on?
Maybe the astronaut destroying the miniature city, that scene.
That was great. That was great. I enjoyed that a lot. Big fan of the big monster movies. Yeah. So you had to build that whole. So you built the whole set yourself? I mean, that whole miniature city.
Yeah, all the miniature buildings I figured out how to make, and then it was me and one of the actresses, the younger actress's dad, and then my dad and a few of the cast and crew. A lot of it was just me and Brian Eller, the Nadia Eller's dad. It was really just mainly us, and then everyone else kind of came in and out. But it was about 7 days of working on that set. We built 15 buildings, and I remember I sat down with some of the producers, and we were trying to figure out how to do it. When my special effects guys, and they just said, "There's no way we can do this. Like we're gonna have." What they wanted to do was green screen everything.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, "That's just gonna look like a shitty film, like a low budget film." And of course, it still does look like a low budget film, but I wanted it to feel like a low budget film from the 70s.
You had a certain aesthetic that you needed to keep to, and doing a green screen would not have kept to that. Yeah.
100%. And so I started really researching for like 2 or 3 weeks online, and I found railroad, like miniature train forums, and they did this thing called building sides, and it's like for the back of their train sets, they had like the sides of buildings. They had like high resolution pictures of the sides of buildings that they would blow up and just have flat pictures behind the sets. And so I was like, okay, maybe we could do something with that. And then I watched this show called Danger Five, one of my favorite TV shows. It's like an Australian TV show. And they did a couple episodes with these large kaiju monsters. And I was screenshotting the scenes because I was trying to figure out how they made the buildings, and I realized these are just printed pictures that they did, 4 sides of printed pictures that, like, obviously on wood or something, and then they were just using corner molding for the sides of the buildings to hide the seams. And so I was like, well, that's it. That's what I'll do. And so that's exactly what we do. I printed up pictures of the buildings. I have a wide format printer at home because I'm doing art prints, and then we just glued them to Luan and made these buildings. It's that simple, but it came out pretty effective.
Oh, it came out. It was fantastic. I have to tell you, that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, it was amazing how like kind of weirdly realistic it looked in its own like hyper realistic way.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I, we were watching Scanners the other night, the David Cronenberg movie. Yeah, I think it was like 1981 or something like that. And I'd seen it a couple of times. It was my girlfriend's first time seeing it. Nice. And towards the end, there was this really messy, body horror kind of scene. And we both thought, if that was CGI, it wouldn't have been as powerful.
Absolutely. There's the new Suspiria remake, and I love the film, but towards the end of the film, there's just a shitload of head explosions, and it's all CGI. And all I can go is every time I watch it, I think I love this scene, but it would have been so much more effective if it was it was practical effects. And how hard would that have been? It would have looked beautiful.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Well, let me say that your exploding head effect, very impressive.
Thank you. If you would actually have seen the head before we blew it up, it looked like garbage. It was really just like a fakery of editing. If you actually screenshot those scenes right before the head explodes, the head is literally a painted mannequin styrofoam head that we had hollowed out, and my special effects guy made the whole thing, and it ended up looking beautiful. But it's only through the magic of editing that it doesn't look like really stupid. But the actual explosion looks beautiful. And we had one head. I remember we had one head. We shot it with 3 cameras just to make sure we had enough footage of it. And I remember right before we did it, my special effects guy, Charles, he said, listen, this might not work. And this is like 3 o'clock in the morning. And we have one head and one shot to do it. Like, oh, okay, well, hopefully it does. And it did. Thank God. So.
That's fantastic. So how long did it take you to shoot the whole movie?
It was 2 months, but it was 22 days of shooting, but it was spread over 2 months. And really, for me, that's the best way to do things. Is we would shoot like 2 to 3 days a week, and we would spread those days out a few days, so that we could have the time to reset, get everything together, and shoot another time. Because most Hollywood films are shooting Monday through Friday.
Oh yeah.
And there's no way to do it when you have a small crew. There's no way you can shoot till midnight and then get up the next morning and have all the wardrobe and all the props and all the food ready. There's no way. So
if you want to sleep, there's no way to do that.
Yeah. Then you're not on your game and you're not shooting right. You're going to need pickup shots and just not going to work.
Right. Was it difficult to corral so many people in terms of, your camera person, your sound person, your actors? Was it hard to put everyone in a schedule and make sure everyone was available for certain shooting days?
Absolutely. Well, on an ideal set, you would have a line producer who would actually, and a production assistants and things that would actually be putting all these schedules together. And no, we didn't have that. It was me. And so, yeah, that was the biggest problem, was trying to get everyone on schedule together. And there was probably like 4 or 5 days where we had to reschedule because, cinematographer wouldn't be available or one of the actors wouldn't be available. And so, yeah, that was the logistical nightmare, was that. But as also saying this, we had a very slim crew, and that's really when you're running on a low budget, it's the best way to do it. We would shoot behind the camera. It would be anywhere between like 3 and 6 people at the most. And that's like makeup and hair and wardrobe and everything, and camera and sound and everything. So when it comes down to scheduling, when you're on that small of a crew, it is a lot easier, but it still was a nightmare.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of actors, did you pull people from your first movie?
Yeah, there was a few. We had our principal was from the first movie, also played the psychic from God and Same Ear. Ginger Breadman in this movie she was Linnea, who was their main actress in the last film. And I wrote that character specifically for her. I just had, after working with God and Same Ear, I knew her range and her volume, so I knew she could do that part. So yeah, I definitely pulled quite a few people, honestly. But like I had a new vision for the new main character, so I had to find a new actress for that and for the sister. And so there was still a lot of there's a lot more characters in this film. So there's a lot more roles to fill. So
Indeed. Name of the main character is Anne Hutchinson. Was there any meaning behind the name Anne Hutchinson?
It was kind of backwards engineered. I had thought of the name, and then I decided to research the name while I was writing, and realized that she was an old Puritan who got who got judged for persecuted for her faith, and she actually went before a jury and all this sort of stuff. So it was actually kind of similar in a lot of ways with her, with Anne Hutchinson in this movie, who she's going through a spiritual journey and being judged by it, going through this council, the space council is judging her. And so we did put in one line that's a direct quote from Anne Hutchinson, from the Puritan Anne Hutchinson. Something like, "I'm standing before you, but I hear no things laid to my charge," and that was like a direct quote from the old Puritan. So
that's pure magic. I'm from the Boston area, and so Anne Hutchinson. I'm going, Anne Hutchinson. I know that name, Anne Hutchinson. Was she part of the Salem witch trials? There was some kind of trial, I think, and then I did a quick Google search. It's like, oh, spot on, nice. With
and it's interesting because she was really fighting for the universal grace, essentially, for God loving you no matter what your actions are. And that's kind of what her journey is she's done all these terrible things, but she really she gets, I don't want to spoil it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to shut up now. So.
Okay. because I have like a few pages, small pages worth of notes, and it's like, all right. So how am I going to ask questions without revealing, without doing the big reveal?
Right.
So far, so good. So far, so good.
Good. Yes.
We'll take the more mundane issues like that, but well done on Anne Hutchinson. Yeah, definitely. Costume design.
Yeah.
Some pretty wild stuff you got going on there.
I originally did a lookbook because when I was shopping the film around to actually get investors, I did you're supposed to do a thing called a lookbook. So like each different section of the film, I want to have a specific look. For instance, in their house, we used like One Day at a Time and Brady Bunch and a lot of like 70s sitcoms, and for the look of the house and the wardrobe of everyone that lived in the house. And then like Space Council, I used a lot of 50s imagery. So I took screenshots from like the Evil Brain from Outer Space and a lot of like old Buck Rogers and things like that.
Right.
And then like the Zeolans, the Cosmic Camera Crew. There's a old Godzilla film. I think it's like the X from Outer Space or something like that. But they go to Mars or some other planet, and there's like this Japanese alien like civilization that lives on this planet. They all have these visors and this like silver outfits. And so that was like the original kind of idea there. And so I was using like kind of like making this movie into like a cinematic mixtape of different like genres and also different periods of film, so that's kind of where I got the ideas from. But I did do a lot of the conceptual art myself, being an artist, and I had some artist friends that did some of the artwork. A friend, Spencer Epps, who did the artwork for the what I call the flight attendants, or the women, the flight attendants of the spaceship. And he did like very 50s stylish looks, which was great, but it was one of the hardest things to actually recreate from his drawings, especially our main flight attendant with the big glass dome and everything. That was a real pain in the ass to actually pull off, but it looks great on camera.
It does. It looks fantastic. I have to ask you, did you make your own fake blood?
So the special effects guy, Charles Lucia, he did a lot of the fake blood, and he makes it himself. So it's like the Caro syrup and the cocoa powder and all that shit. Yeah. So, and then my daughter also made a bunch of the fake blood as well. But yeah, it's all the YouTube recipes.
Right. Right. I made some with my kid one time just for laughs.
Right.
Fun but sticky.
It's very messy.
Indeed. So, do you have a crazy story from shooting the movie?
Oh, crazy story from shooting the movie. Yeah, I'm sure I do. I think that one of the biggest things was on the church day when we were shooting that day. The just the logistics of getting the tub in there and getting it full of blood and then getting the blood out. We brought like a sump pump to actually get all the blood out. We were going to get it out into a gutter in the street, and then the pump broke, of course, because it's fucking syrup that you're trying to pump out. And my special effects guy had to like use just a giant 5-gallon bucket and like bring it outside and pour it outside. It took forever, and like we had to mop that place and get it completely clean. It's these marble floors that are super slippery, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning in a very bad neighborhood. It was quite horrifying.
That was a big tub. That was a good sized tub from what I saw in the movie.
It was one of those. That was a nightmare trying to figure out how we were going to do that scene, because the original idea was like a sunk in the ground kind of baptismal that she was going to walk into, and it was going to be very dramatic, her walking into this thing and disappearing into the blood. And it was impossible to find. I thought, oh yeah, baptismals like that exist, and they don't exist, which I don't know why I thought they did. So we ended up finding on Facebook Marketplace, we found a clawfoot tub that just happened to have this wonderful like painting on the side of it that really matched the church really well. And so we bought it and then had to get it transported over. And the funny part was just getting our main character's body completely submerged, which the blood itself is really buoyant because of like the gel in it. And so it was really hard for her to just actually get her whole body under the liquid, the liquid itself. And then we didn't have a way to actually transport it out of the church. And it was funny, the guy, like kind of the groundskeeper, because this was like a defunct church that they just rented for things. The groundskeeper was like, "I'll keep it, I'll sell it." I'm like, "Okay, I can't take it. So here, just donated it to the groundskeeper."
Well, it sounds like you made out on the deal, so you didn't have to take it out.
That's right, exactly.
What lessons we talked about how making both of the films helped you grapple with God and the nature and meaning of existence in a lot of ways. But in terms of technical stuff, in terms of maybe directing or set design or editing, what was a main lesson that you learned while doing this movie?
Oh, the main lesson I learned while doing this movie. Maybe a couple things. Number one is silly, but don't feed pizza every day, or you're going to have a revolt. I think I'm addicted to pizza maybe too much, and so I was like, "Yeah, let's have pizza again." It definitely had some people threaten to walk off set with that. And number two, I'm never going to make another micro budget film of this magnitude, at least, without like if I make another micro budget, it's going to be something that I wasn't trying to shoot for $1 million. So it was such a big project, and so many people worked on it for free or for no money that it's just they deserve more than that, and so yeah, I'd like to have a bigger budget, just a budget enough to pay people, even if it's just the bare minimum, but just to be able to do that.
I could definitely see that. Here's a comment from Tons of Mice. Simpsons Halloween Special 2020, Groundskeeper Willie and the Tub of Blood.
That's hilarious.
I think that would be a pretty good, Halloween special there for the Simpsons.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Was there anything, because I'm not a movie expert, I've just done a couple of a couple of small things. I've written a couple of screenplays myself. But is there anything you wanted to ask me about the movie?
Oh God. Yeah, what did you derive any personal meaning to your life from the film? Do you feel like it spoke to you on any sort of personal level? And if it didn't, it's fine.
Right. I believe I wrapped my mind around the theme of the movie.
Yeah, that's good. Well, what do you think the theme of the movie was?
Well, what I liked about it is that you basically, there are movies that the filmmaker will tell you what the theme is. We just saw Heredity, the horror movie. Right. This was my second time watching it. It was my girlfriend's first time watching it. And Ari Aster, I believe that's the filmmaker. He tells you what,
that's right.
He tells you what the movie's going to be about in that one of the opening classroom scenes.
Right.
And one of my favorite movies, The Addiction, which is a black and white horror movie, I think early 90s. There is a discussion once again in another classroom at the beginning of the movie that tells you, oh, this is what the movie is about, which is the nature of suffering in the world. Right. I feel that you went out of your way to telegraph what you wanted to communicate, especially in the mailbox.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You notice how we're able to do that without giving it away?
Yeah, absolutely. There's also quite a few commentaries in the film.
Oh yeah.
Through the principal, and then there's a character named the preacher, I call him, but he's the janitor guy who talks to the main character, and also the floating head who talks to the main character. There's quite a few dissertations that I give in the film.
So there is, like I said, an internal logic to the movie, and you, I think, spent time communicating that theme at different points, but especially with that mailbox.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That mailbox was inspired by a movie called Why Don't You Play in Hell? And there's a scene in the film where there's this wall of little prayer boxes that this character runs into, and takes one of the notes out and reads the prayer. And I just love that idea of this. It's the Wailing Wall or whatever. There's this idea of giving a note to God, Yeah. And so I just wanted to kind of create that in the film, the same kind of idea. But yeah, no, that really expresses the theme completely right there.
And I feel, and that resonated with me.
Good.
And I didn't think the art, the visuals, obscured that theme.
Good. That's awesome. Yeah.
Hey, we've been able to go almost 50 minutes without giving away the movie. I think that was pretty. I think that's pretty good, to tell you the truth.
That's awesome. Yeah, totally. All right, I'm going to ask you one more.
Yeah.
What do you think the name Gingerbreadman represents? Do you have any idea there?
Run fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. That was the first thing I thought of. And then, there was this kind of, I think the movie gives itself to some kind of Freudian, analysis in some ways. And I also thought of Jacob's Ladder, the movie Jacob's Ladder.
Yep.
And so, all that stuff was oh, I see, or at least I think, because unless I talk to you, I'm not really sure but that's how I thought that was what you were trying, those kind of vibes. That was the message for that character and what that character was all about.
Absolutely. Also, I really get frustrated, I think, when a director says, or a creator says, this is the way that my piece of art should be interpreted. Yeah. And there's only one way. It's my way. Because when you're putting your art out into the world, that's the end of it. It's now a possession of whoever consumes it. David Lynch talks about how you can't go to the painters of like the 17th century and ask them what they meant by this painting because they're dead. Right. So now it's just up to us. And so that, for me, that's like super important. I love talking about what my belief in what the film is, but I don't want anybody else to have the same idea. I want them to come away with their own ideas of what the movie speaks to them personally,
And once we hit the end broadcast button, I think I would say one or two more things to that. But if I said those things right now, that would give away the movie. And
absolutely. I will say with Ginger Breadman, the idea, in a way, I think it was after I kind of thought about the name. So I kind of backwards engineered this meaning as well. But a gingerbread man is kind of like a bakery form of a homunculus. It's like this, it's like this alchemical creation to go do your own bidding. And so this kind of in that way is what she means.
Oh, that's definitely, you can definitely see that. You can definitely see that. So Joe, what do you have for future projects? I know you're just finishing this and you're promoting it and you're doing a lot of hustling, but you must have other things rattling off in the back of your head.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of writing a new script, and then hopefully shopping it around to somebody who wants to give me some money. I'm writing a script, and the best way I can describe it is like 2001 meets Wolfman meets Holy Mountain, and it follows these two characters' lives, and one guy has a hairy growth disease, and the other guy is losing his hair. And these two characters kind of collide. But the movie starts at the beginning of time and ends thousands of years in the future. And it kind of shows how all of our lives are interconnected. So that's the movie I really am dreaming to create. But I have other things in the works. I have another story I'm writing that's basically like surreal flowers in the attic sort of story.
Nice.
And I'm also working on kind of an anthology where I'm taking old short films from friends and family and little art pieces and stuff, and kind of creating this big mishmash of nonsense. So I'm kind of working on that a little bit as well.
When you say that you try to make nonsense, do you find that structure just kind of appears even when you're trying to be chaotic?
100%. Totally. A lot with both films. I try to write my stories first in a place of nonsense. Try to write it with. I have like a basic structure, but then I'm also trying to write it in a way that's like trying to think of the right word. Where it's almost stream of consciousness in a way. I'm just writing and not thinking, and structure always comes out of it. It's like entropy, you know. And I really am fascinated with the idea of creative entropy, where you find structure out of chaos, you know.
I like that a lot, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Sweet. So is there a question that you wanted me to ask you, but I didn't? Was there a topic you wanted to chat about, but we didn't get to? Now, this isn't about where people can find you online, but in terms of substance, in terms of the movie or anything else, was there something you wanted to speak of?
I think you asked it. I was really, because you deal a lot with religion and with atheism and things like that. I definitely wanted to talk about that. That was like on my heart to talk about, because for me, it's weird because I still believe in God.
Yep.
And I still have a faith, but it's completely different than I've ever had before. And it's really come from me creating these two films and using this as almost like prayers in a way,
Sure.
or creative wrestling with the spiritual realm. And when it comes down to it, it's like at a place where, like we talked about, that I'm at a place where I don't know, but at the same time, I still have a need for a spiritual life.
Sure. When people ask me about whether or not I'm spiritual, I will say that I find meaning in certain things. I will say that I find meaning with engaging in art, in creating art, and being with my children, and doing good in the world. Because I think, our language is clunky, as your movies all show, right? There is something about imagery and the rawness of experience. And so when I hear someone ask me about whether or not they're spiritual, I will reply, it's like, this is what I find meaning in. And I think that's more satisfying an answer, or at least that's more of an honest answer for me.
Yeah, completely. No, that's really good. It just like, it's weird. Like the longer I'm alive, the more I am really just wanting a sincere experience instead of like a mental, like ascension, like this mental idea of like, what do I believe, or even like a heart faith thing. It's like at this point in my life, I just want to experience sincere things, and if that means doing creative projects, or if that means having a beautiful relationship with my wife and kids, whatever that is something that's more concrete and more sincere, instead of going, well, I believe this, and I'm voting for this person, and and this is my dogma, and this is my ideals. Idealism and dogma, for me, are just ruin the world.
Yeah.
Because the funny thing is, the more you talk to people, the more you realize everybody, for the most part, wants the same thing. They want a better world. They want justice. Like, no matter on what side of the fence, most people want good things for humans. But our idealism and dogma like makes us enemies towards one another.
It gets in the way of our better instincts in a lot.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I think there's a real power in saying, I don't know anymore. Yeah.
No, well said, man. Well said. Tons of mice from the chat says, I'm intrigued enough to watch Sister Tempest tonight. Really want to see the bloody mess in the church.
Yes, it's the last couple minutes, so
well worth it. Yeah, well worth it. Well worth it. Joe Badon, where can people find you online, sir?
If you go on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, just look up my name, Joe Badon. Last name is Badon, like bad on. It's not Biden, which I know gets confusing. And then if you do the same on all the social media and look up Sister Tempest, we have pages for all that. And of course, I have a blog spot for Sister Tempest, sistertempest.blogspot.com. Also, if you Google me, Google my name, you can find my artwork. I have an Etsy store. I have an art blog. So yeah, it's all out there. So
well, one, I want to thank everyone in the chat for coming in and contributing. This has been a lot of fun. Joe Badon, I feel privileged in being able to talk with you for this hour. and able to talk to you about the movie. I got a lot out of it, and this has been a great conversation.
Really, thank you so much for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
Fantastic, man. All right. So everyone, I'll see you later, and I'm going to hit